Addiction is the way a person gets attached to something that's very disordered in their life. And they grow in chronicity over periods of time and usually cause great consequences in their life, whether it's emotional or psychological. Addiction is being attached to, which in French word is attachement, means nailed to, something that is very disordered, for instance, alcohol or drugs. The way we used to work as therapists for many years was with CBT therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy. And there's been many successes over the years with that. However, with people who have complex trauma, it's a temporary fix. And I learned that in my own career, as I started 20 years ago, that people were not able to retain information just by using CBT, and we had to work into the traumas. And there's a major correlation between trauma and addiction. If someone, for instance, lost their parents at 8 years old, and they may have got it started with overeating, and now they're 25 and they're morbidly obese. If you just try to work with cognitive behavioral therapy, you'll have some success, but it's very difficult for the person to stay what we would say sober, unless you go into other areas of work, which is inner psychic therapy, where you start to work into the trauma. So the physical part of addiction, let's pick alcohol, is that the person builds a tolerance to the alcohol. Let's say they tremendous amount of stress at work and they come home every night and have a glass of wine and some form of relaxation takes place. The problem with that is that in a month or two it takes 2 glasses of wine to start feeling relaxed, to get the same level of comfort, and in 6 months they're drinking a bottle of wine. So all addictions are progressive in nature. There's a tolerance to them that also goes with drugs, and it really starts to take over someone's life. The long-term problem with addiction is that they destroy the organs. You can start to get what we used to call a wet brain, which now they call alcohol-induced dementia. That's more chronic addiction. And in the programs of recovery, we always say the end product of addiction is jail, insanity, or death. So you can actually lose your mind. So the emotional part of addiction is wherever you started, say, drinking, if you were 14, that's where you become emotionally arrested. So you can have a 50-year-old man who's acting emotionally like a 14-year-old, which doesn't work too good in relationships, doesn't work too good in businesses, and definitely doesn't work too good in marriages. So it becomes very chronic. So the spiritual part of recovery is that anyone who's been around or been in 12 steps knows that they need to have something greater than themselves to restore them to sanity. We use a 12-step model, and that's the second step, is believe something greater than me can restore me to sanity. And that's certainly not me, because I'm a therapist. We believe at Living Waters that there is a God. And in recovery, we always would say there is a God and it's not me. Many times I've worked with people for years and thought I was getting nowhere, and they can come in and 2 weeks later and have a complete breakthrough. Now, I know I didn't do that, so I know that God is in the work that we do. Well, in Living Waters, we still have the latitude to talk about faith. We're not there to preach to anyone. We're not there to convert anyone. We are all Catholic, but we're open to all faiths. We've been doing this for 21 years, I guess now. I started with Carol 21 years ago. And I've had many people come in who had no faith, and I don't know, it's a mystery to me how it works, whether they pick it up from me, but after a while they're asking me questions about God. So the spiritual part is really, I know, as I said before, God is a healer. So it really gives you another whole dimension to work with that's always been very, very helpful. The main thing I've learned with working with addictions as a clinical therapist is that you have to get into the source of someone's trauma. You're always trying to discern why the addiction occurred in the first place. That takes experience. You need to know your way around post-traumatic stress disorder. You need to help people get on medications. So it becomes very complex. If just using CBT alone, I've always felt, is absolutely imperative, but it's never enough.